Good evening, everyone. It being on or after 7 o'clock on May 18, 2017, I'm going to open up the conservation meeting for the Georgetown Conservation Commission. And this evening on the agenda we have, as usual, some business items, but we have a number of hearings. Some of them are to be continued. And since it is past 7 o'clock, I'm going to, let's see. And it's past 7:10. I'm going to open up Jackman Street, GCC 2017-04.
So this is the project.
Okay, go ahead.
Last meeting, we requested a continuation so that we can get DEP feedback, and the commission didn't have any big issues with it. I'm very sorry. This is 100% my fault. It's actually an RDA. I kept on calling it a notice of intent and handling it as such, but it was filed as an RDA. And as such, you don't get feedback from the DEP. So the commission was okay with it before, under a notice of intent, but it never was. So I'm recommending negative determination with the standard conditions to have them work with me, and if there are any issues in the field.
Is the applicant here for that?
He wasn't able to, but I think his dad is.
Oh,
So,
okay.
again, not much has changed, so there's representation, but
Yeah,
he's
just-
not as familiar with the project.
Right, I just wanted to make sure someone was here who potentially can
And no abutters to the project,
act on the behalf of the
Yep.
applicant.
if needed.
So as you indicated, as I recall, there were no issues with this. And just to remind the commission, if you have a positive determination, the RDA goes into the NOI process. So, normally the process, if we don't have a problem, it's a negative determination, and then we move it on from there. We don't have to, there's no further filing at that point. And you can have negative determination with conditions too.
Okay.
So we would issue a negative determination. And if that's what the commission so desires. And since it's been a couple of weeks, Steve, why don't you just,
This is,
and for the TV audience out there, why don't you just run through the,
this was that pool project.
Yeah.
Above ground pool and some decking. That was just barely in the 200-foot buffer from the riverfront.
Right.
And well outside the 100-foot buffer to
Oh, I'm, okay.
That's why I wanted him to go over again.
on existing lawn, very, very heavily wooded buffer. That existing 160 feet is 100% natural and wooded, a great buffer.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
no one had any problems.
And this was an
with that.
above ground, this was
Yeah.
an above ground
Yeah.
pool, so it wasn't like they were, digging down and doing any
And you
serious
came here
exhibit.
first
Yeah.
and asked first. So
Right,
it's-
So I have no issue with this particular.
Yeah, I have no issue.
I didn't then either.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect that. So we're just looking for a negative determination with the condition just to work with agent in the field.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for a negative determination of the RDA on Jackman Street.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to issue a negative determination for the RDA at Jackman Street, GCC 2017-04. Is there any further discussion?
Do I need to add that they work with Steve in the field?
It's kind of a standard condition. I have a boilerplate, whole bunch
Okay,
of
with the
conditions.
condition that they work with. Remotion.
Remotioned and
Resecond.
Make
Second.
sure-
reseconded, that the applicant work with Steve in the field. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to close the RDA for Jackman Street.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the RDA for Jackman Street.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to close the RDA for Jackman Street. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. Very good. Thank you. You're all set.
I'll sign the building permit tonight and from the building department's desk, so Monday morning we come up. Pick up that permit.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
You're welcome.
You can start right from the beginning, Carl, so we have time to get through all of them.
Okay. It being on or after 7 o'clock, I'm going to continue the ANRAD for 99 Central Street, GCC 2016-17, and that's wetland delineation. And it's my understanding we've been asked to continue.
Correct. This is the one, just to give you a quick update,
Right.
the applicant wasn't happy with the price of the third-party review, so I got them to reduce it. And they really didn't reduce anything. They just said that they wouldn't do, typically, they always include coming into a meeting and a second site walk. Very rarely in a project this scale and size do we ever have them do that. So the money they're actually spending is going to be the same. It's just, when they give us an extra $1,000 for those other activities that don't happen, we reimburse it at the end. Where this time, we'll just use up the total. To that point, they still claim not to have the money to pay for the third-party review, so we're in holding pattern until they pay. Nothing really to update, and they did request in writing continuation.
So that's fine, we can continue that until until they can kind of reconnoiter in terms of what they really want to do here. And I thought we had also agreed to, provide them with a couple other,
I think in the end, we had talked about getting 3 other estimates, and my experience is they're all very similar, and we're used to working with Jillian, we're comfortable with Jillian, and this idea about reducing it by reducing the scope of work was an alternative.
we had the discussion, and it's also stating that I believe that we felt the prices would be pretty similar no matter,
Correct.
who was used. I mean, they're all in the same business, they all know each other.
They have longer drives. The other ones that we would use have even longer drives, so they might be more money. And I think at the time, he's like, well, if you're comfortable with Jillian, we'll just,
And we had the discussion also that many of the locals actually have hearings in front of us, and we didn't feel comfortable
Correct.
using wetland scientists that actually are in front of us, 2 hearings from now, and they're gonna be representing us, in this particular situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So, let's see, do we have any recommended dates to move this to?
June 15th at 7 o'clock.
I'll entertain a motion to continue this.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue the ANRAD for 99 Central Street, GCC 2016-17, DEP 161-0832 until June 15 at 7 o'clock.
Second?
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the ANRAD for Jackman, Central Street rather, to June 15th at 7 o'clock. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Motion carries. All right.
Carl, while you guys are continuing this next hearing, I'm gonna run downstairs to make sure that our consultant and the TIDS project aren't downstairs. Last time we were in the second floor meeting room, and they might not have picked up on that it's up here. The
Okay.
fact that they're not here yet,
Was-
to me, is a little odd.
I think it was dark in that room, but when I
Okay.
walked by.
So this one, next one continuing, they cannot attend. Same date. I'll be right back.
Okay, it being on or after 7:15, I'm going to reopen a notice of intent for 64-74 East Main Street, GCC 2017-01. That's to pave an existing driveway, construct paved parking spaces, install stormwater management within 100 feet of PVW and 200 feet of the riverfront area. And we've got a request from the applicant to continue this as well. And let's see. And I'll entertain a motion to continue, and I would say to probably June 15th again.
What time?
Let's see. 7:10, 7:15.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue 6474 East Main Street till June 15th at 7:10.
Second.
We have a motion to continue 64-74 East Main Street to June 15th at 7:10 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. Motion carries. All right, and let's see.
To the Tenny Street one, probably.
Tenny. Okay. It being on or after 7:20, I'm gonna reopen a notice of intent for Tenny Street, Lot 1, GCC 2016-18. That's to construct a 4-bedroom dwelling, a portion of the driveway utilities and associated grading within the buffer zone or a freshwater wetland. If I could have the applicant or consultant.
So I believe they're requesting a continuation. I did not actually get anything in writing, but Jillian, our third-party reviewer, is here, and she's here more for the West Street project, but I believe she did some more field work this week on it, so I'm hoping by the next meeting, we should probably have an agreed-upon plan. Is that a fair?
Yeah, they were gonna send me the revised plan, and then I can write a report and hopefully just say, yeah, everything is as we discussed in the field, and
We can go and approve it. Okay, excellent.
So there is progress being made, even though we hadn't heard from the applicant here, so
Correct,
we
correct.
definitely will continue this. Let's see. I'll entertain a motion to continue, June 15th. Does that seem to be the?
Yep, 7:15.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue the NOI for Tenny Street, Lot Number 1, GCC 2016-18, DEP 161-0830, until June 15 at 7:15.
Second?
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for Tenny Street Lot 1 to June 15th at 7:15 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstaining. Motion carries. And we're a couple minutes early.
Anyone downstairs for the West Street project?
no, I didn't.
Okay. So I have a bunch of
Why don't we try and
busy work
do
we
a
can
couple
in the
couple
meantime.
bills or whatever we need to do for a few minutes anyway.
And again,
On.
we've been communicating with the West Street folks, so I don't know where they are, so I apologize for that.
Well,
I have
Oh, someone's gone.
three, we still can't start for a few minutes anyway, so we'll just get into this a bit. So, 3 sets of bills. Camp Dennison, $1,655. The way we're doing this now for accounting purposes is there's one signing sheet and all the bills are underneath it. So we're not doing one for each electric bill, one for each X, Y, and Z. So this is mostly electric, both power to Georgetown Light and also the fire alarm service, Needham Electric, some lawnmower parts, some Amesbury supplies, usually Amesbury supplies, hardware and plumbing type stuff. Again, that's $1,655. Another set for Camp Dennison for $2,590. They're doing a lot of electrical work on the bathroom facility, and this is all under the CPC proposed historic project. So there's some hardware, some electrical work, and Dennison Madden, who I think is the electrician doing all the work down there.
Is
And
most of the electrical work done down there?
so they're redoing that bathhouse, so that was pretty much 100% new.
Oh, okay.
They gutted the building. I don't know if it actually had power to begin with.
Yeah,
Some of the
that's-
electric bills you've been seeing are rewiring the actual lodge. So there's a lot of old, really crappy wire in the lodge.
So they didn't go in there and just get it done, rip it out? And
They kind of pick away. They phase things. You know, like they're working on this wall and that wire needs to be
Yeah.
fixed. And
They're,
it's a
they're
danger.
rebuilding that whole building, aren't they?
The bathhouse they are.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that
I
was in
believe one of
pretty
those
poor shape.
one of those electric bills was for the lodge. So I guess you see all these bills. You don't always know exactly where the work's being done. I track it outside of this.
Oh,
but,
yeah, yeah.
So the bathhouse pretty much was gutted. They tore almost every board off the place. There might be a few remaining, but and then reimbursement for cell and mileage, $594. So that's the 3 bills. So 3 signatures. If you guys are so inclined.
I'll entertain a motion to pay the bills as,
I would like to make a motion to pay the bills as read by Steve.
Second.
we have a motion, it's been seconded to pay the bills as read by Steve. Is there any further discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, all abstaining. All right. Did you say 9? mix me up.
Yeah.
All right.
Steve, can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Questions,
I always
questions
keep
come at the end of the meeting?
keep forgetting to ask, but Summer Street, how did that finally end? Did he get the work done,
He got,
grading and everything on that?
so there was an enforcement component.
Right,
He filed a notice of intent and got an order of conditions
right.
to do a good amount of work in the septic system. My understanding is, I don't know this for a fact, I heard that it's for sale, and all they replaced was the septic system. They hadn't done any work in the back.
Oh, okay.
That's just what I had
So
heard.
it hasn't been restored?
The enforcement-related stuff has been restored. The NOI-related activities, there's gonna be an addition and a garage. I don't believe any of that's happened, but I'm not
So
positive.
let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think we are past 7:30. It being past 7:30, I'm going to reopen a notice of intent for 47 West Street, DEP 161-0826. If I could have the applicant and/or consultant, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Richard Morello, principal.
Thank you.
Nice. I don't know where he should be here. I just talked to him. Mike Seacamp.
Are you expecting them?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Carl, do we want to hit some other busy work and give this a few minutes?
Yes, sir.
What do we have following this?
I can give you paperwork. Just, we can't open any more hearings till the time alone. We have one more at 7:45. Next one.
Yeah, I see that.
So this is the determination of applicability that we approved for that 74 Jackman Street property earlier in the meeting. This is
Oh, okay.
an enforcement order related to 15 True Lane. At the last meeting, you asked me to write an enforcement action against the contractor that did the work. The way I wrote this, and again, you can modify it, the commission has the authority to fine $300 per day per violation. The gentleman was out there for 2 days moving dirt. So I put this in at $600 for the fine.
Now, is that one EO or two EOs?
This is one, so it's an enforcement order and then an attachment.
We also talked about an EO against the,
So apparently, I still not really got a solid
Contractor.
answer on this. The homeowner and the Mr. Sexton, the dirt guy, did all the tree cutting. There was no tree company.
Oh.
So it depends.
Really?
Oh.
So it
that
depends.
changes things.
It depends on, So I didn't have a tree. It was one of those things. He had someone, but he doesn't know who it was, and he doesn't have the information. And it was something Italian name, and so at this point, there is no tree guy that I can write an enforcement action.
With all
to.
that discussion we had, why is there any confusion? It's Jensen attorney.
I couldn't write an enforcement order because I don't have a name to write it to. So
That's why.
there's some confusion.
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly like that.
So again, I just picked a reasonable, what I thought a reasonable starting place, and it's the commission can modify, change, throw it out. If you want to modify, it's on the attachment, so I can change it. You just have to vote and authorize it. And I started writing 2 more enforcement orders today. It's a busy time of the year for us. Some
Do you
tree
need a
cutting.
motion for these, or can I just sign?
Do you have to vote on the EOs or just
If
ratify them?
if it's been changing, we ratified the initial, the
Correct,
initial verbal.
correct.
So
So this-
if you've changed the verbiage on this at all,
Nope, same.
I mean,
Okay.
it won't hurt to re-ratify it.
Should I?
To basically ratify the enforcement as written by Steve
Perfect.
Okay, I'd like
on,
to,
on May 18th.
I'd like to make a motion to ratify the enforcement order on 15 True Lane, as written by Steve, on May 18th.
Second.
There's a motion, and it's been seconded to ratify the enforcement order for True Lane as written by Steve on May 18th. Any further discussion? Again, we can modify this at any time, so if we want to change it, or, fine, or do anything, we can always add it. I mean, it's very flexible type.
There's also still the main enforcement order against the homeowner, right? This is a secondary one against the contractor. We still have an open order, enforcement action against the owner, and eventually we'll settle up on that. Soil has been removed starting yesterday.
So-
Hopefully more will be
So
removed
this is the
tomorrow.
one against the
This is,
contract.
this is against the contractor. You already signed the one against the
Right.
homeowner.
That's what I wanted to clarify before, so. Okay,
How do we go forward with the,
well,
whoever cut down the trees?
We can deal with the homeowner when he comes in and,
Okay.
and, you know, if, issue another one as necessary. I'll call the question on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, all abstaining, motion carries. And let's see. Sure. Mhm. Coming your way. All right, we've already opened the notice of intent for continuation for 47 West Street. And if the applicant has identified himself, if the consultant could identify himself for the record, we would appreciate it.
I'm Michael Seacamp.
Thank
Seacamp
you.
Environmental Consulting,
Thank you.
and I'm here tonight with the applicant, Richard
Hmm.
Morella of Georgetown West Realty Trust. And at the last meeting, we discussed the current conditions. I see Jillian is here tonight. And we had, just to kind of recap where we are, this site was a former junkyard, and we filed a notice of intent in, I think it was 2001. In 2002, we got an order of conditions to build the 16-unit over 55 housing, 40B project. So it had a affordable component to it. The wetlands were approved through a superseding determination of applicability through DEP, and that was what the project was based on. At that time, we had established the Georgetown setbacks to the project, to those wetlands. And then the cleanup of the site got underway and took
Went
quite a
south.
long time.
It went
because-
south.
I beg your
It
pardon?
went south.
Went
Because-
south?
Yeah, because I think we issued an EO within 48 hours of the initial cleanup.
That's right. So I think that was in, what, 2007 or 2008?
Yeah, it was literally like the first week of the
Yeah.
start of the work.
So then we withdrew the subsequent notice of intent for the project on the commission's request because the cleanup was to take place under the enforcement order. And we wanted to restart the project, so I was asked to reflag the site, which I did in late 2015, and it was a dry time of year. And we filed a notice of intent for the project. Then we had the Jillian Davies from BSC was asked to review the wetland boundary. And I was not able to meet her at the site because of a family emergency, but I did talk to her from the hospital parking lot. And at the end of the day, and she said that she couldn't determine the soils because of the disturbance, and the vegetation was mostly invasive species in the area of the cleanup. So she suggested that we do groundwater monitoring wells in the early part of this year, which we did. And we put them along the area where there's in the spring, the water flows from the uphill side down through, and that was where that wetland was, and we put them alongside that boundary because this is the area of the cleanup. And it became obvious fairly quickly that something was up because 4 of the wells were consistently, the water was consistently within probably 10 inches of the surface, which indicates wetland hydrology. And looking at the stream, we actually noticed that the stream had jumped its bank and was coming into this area that had been excavated. So I started to look around because it just didn't seem right to me. And then I realized what the problem was is that the grades had been drastically lowered because of the cleanup, and it was never restored in accordance with the plan, which was the plan that was being carried out under the enforcement order, which I believe the enforcement order is still in place. Has that been lifted?
No, it has not.
Hasn't been lifted, okay. So the cleanup is not complete because part of the plan was to restore the grades. If we restore the grades, then the original wetland delineation is what is valid, and that's what we believe. So that's where we are.
Let's see. Now, Steve, you conveyed there was some confusion of what we had discussed last meeting from the.
At the previous meeting, that was a pretty good, like, overview of what we talked about last meeting. At the end of the night, the commission didn't feel comfortable, at least in my interpretation of the meeting. You know, there's many different directions to go, and the information just was presented. We didn't have a chance to look at it. My memory was we asked them to go back and to consult with Jillian and kind of figure out what Jillian thinks and make recommendations on how best to proceed.
That was my
That was
my
my
recollection,
recollection, too.
that we were trying to,
So,
you know, trying to figure out really to finalize
yeah.
with
I mean,
this data, where to go with it.
I mean, I see this as fairly, you know, if the cleanup wasn't done properly, then they need to put this on hold and go back and address, you know, they're looking at this very simplified, oh, it wasn't finished, let's just finish what we want to finish, but not address that the cleanup might not have been done properly. So there's options, you can go back and readdress the cleanup. If they want to return the grades, readdress the cleanup and make sure the cleanup was done properly. And again, I don't believe, and Jillian can speak for herself, I don't believe they went away and worked this out amongst themselves. They're kind of back here. We're in the exact same position we were last month, to discuss this issue. And the wetland line, as far as I'm concerned, the original one is expired. It's been, 10 years. The order of conditions that it was attached to has
Right,
expired.
and I think we discussed at the last meeting that
Correct.
this line was a little difficult to figure out because of this disturbance that have occurred from the cleanup. And you
And
were
what-
trying to kind of come to a conclusion of
Yeah, well,
where it was based on the
part of the
soil.
cleanup was to restore the grades to where they were. And if we do that, then the wetland line will be back where it was when it was originally approved.
But since it's been so long.
But we would
they've
have to
already
reapprove it again.
established-
We would have to reapprove it again.
Right,
But wouldn't
based
that-
on the fact that if the grades are restored and the cleanup is completed under the existing enforcement order, it's still, it hasn't been lifted. So that part of the cleanup is not complete. However, the DEP in their hazardous waste, and I'm not as familiar with that aspect of it, they've signed off on this, and they
Right.
said this site is now usable
Yeah,
for the use that
Right,
is
and
being.
I'm familiar with that end under the MCP. I mean, they're looking only from a chemical contamination standpoint. We had like this dual-fold project going for the past 10-plus years. You know, we were working with them. They were working the chemical aspect of the cleanup, and we were working the wetland issues kind of concurrently. The hazardous materials folks don't even look at the wetlands.
Right, right.
It's not even in their
Right, and if
purview.
they had, they would have required the grades to be restored. So, in my opinion, that's where we are. We're at the point where the grades need to be restored. Now, one of the commission members brought up the fact that we could restore the grades now and disturb, because it has become revegetated. A lot of it is invasive species. A lot of it is little pine seedlings where it's very dry. There's not much topsoil, but there's still nutrients in the soil. And we could do that, and there would be a disturbance, and there's always a potential for disturbing wetlands that actually have high functions and values. This area has developed wetland hydrology, but it doesn't have the functions and values that we normally associate with protecting wetlands. And I encourage the commission to actually meet us out at the site so we could show you what the conditions are. Even though the DEP has determined that the site is no longer contaminated, there's a lot of metal and plastic and still you can see in the soil. I'm not sure that that would be suitable for a wetland that's upstream from your water supply. What's happening is this water is now jumping the bank, and we've created a basin over here basically. So the water is flowing into this area that was restored. If we reestablish that bank and regrade the site, that would be eliminated, and the water would bypass the area that was previously contaminated and mostly cleaned up.
So
I'd just like to point out that DEP has a policy, and I believe that when a sand and gravel operation is abandoned, I believe a lot of times they over-excavate and they go into the water table. I believe that the standard is once it's abandoned for 5 years, then if it has wetland hydrology, then it's a jurisdictional wetland. But before that, like in agriculture, if a agricultural field which has a grandfathering and if they're plowing in the wetlands, you're allowed to do that if it's continuous. If you stop doing it for a period of 5 years, then it becomes a jurisdictional wetland. I think that's analogous to this situation in some ways. Now, one of your members suggested that instead of doing a restoration of the grades as one step, and then doing the project as another step, why not do it all at once, since we're trying to achieve the same goal? So, and be one less possibility and one less disturbance to the site. So,
just have one comment. I mean, so you're telling me there's still glass and metals and things like that? I'm really surprised the DEP signed off on that.
well, I guess they look at the contaminants, glass and iron.
Well, I think they look at sample data, and that it's pretty hard to fit a piece of glass in a sample tube. And they look at
so
the sample, and
I encourage the commission to meet us out there. I'd like you to see the site. This is a unique situation. This is not your typical wetland situation. And I don't know, I think,
well, I've certainly been out
You've
there
been-
over the years, but it's been a few years anyway since I've been out there.
Yeah.
I was out there in the early days.
yeah, I think it would be valuable for the commission to actually see it because it is a unique situation. The house and the barn are still there. They have to be dealt with. They have to be taken down. They're falling down, so that's part of the project. So we'd like to have it move along, and we'd like to get.
We certainly can schedule a site walk, especially if commissioners, I'm probably the only one on the commission who has seen the site, other than driving by. We can do that. I'd like to hear from our third party, too. Jillian, do you have any comments?
The current, just to go back a little bit, the current vegetation, some of that was wet species, but like Mike said, a lot of them were invasive species or species that go in, they're weedy and they come in to a disturbed site, so they're not really, even if they were a predominant of wetland species, it could have been just because of the recent disturbance, so that was why I felt it was good to put those monitoring wells in, and the soils have been recently disturbed, and they're also very dense and hardly packed, so it was difficult to really get in and get a good look at them. And then I think there are obviously a couple different ways you can go with this, and to me the number one priority would be making sure the site is cleaned up to this proper standard, and if there were, as we talked about, if there was a lapse in the procedure where they didn't complete the job properly, I think that does kind of bring up the question of, was the site really done properly, and are you sure that it's really cleaned up? So I would prioritize being really sure that the site is properly cleaned up. And if it's not, then you would want to put that extra fill back in to make sure things are graded and properly sealed off and,
Yeah, I think especially if you're gonna have residential housing there, right? If people
Yeah.
don't wanna have pieces of a '57 Chevy coming up in their backyard.
yeah, and if there's broken glass and debris.
Unless it's a whole car, then,
That for some reason isn't triggering the DEP thresholds for 21E site, and you're gonna put residential houses on there, you probably do wanna have a bit of a cover that's healthy, and maybe, and the soil right now is very poor because there's not a lot of organics on the top, and it's very dense, and so, if you did put that fill back in, you could spec the soils to bring in some really nice, topsoil and organic matter, and then maybe look at some enhanced restoration plantings, that would be native species, good wildlife habitat value, that kind of thing, so that there's an ecological gain. And I also think Mike did have a good point that if water is going into the area that was treated for contamination, whereas before it was going in its old course in an area that was deemed not contaminated, it is better to keep that water over in the uncontaminated area rather than having it come in to where it could pick up some of this residual, contamination, but.
well, I would be hopeful that it's that it's back to a level that it's not gonna be carrying pollutants,
Yeah.
organics and heavy metals somewhere else, because if it is, then the
Maybe
cleanup
check it out.
isn't done right.
Well, if
Yeah.
DEP signed off on it, then who makes a determination that it hasn't been cleaned up properly?
I mean,
they didn't regrade at the end. I mean, you could make an argument for going back and reevaluating.
Well, I think the first thing, and I agree with Mike that probably the commission should take a look at it to see kind of, I mean, if you start seeing all kinds of stuff out there,
and then if it did get put back to those original grades, then you'd wanna come out and probably with monitoring wells, since it would be all disturbed at that point,
I mean,
and see where the water table is, and wetlands do change, so
yeah,
you need to.
right,
You couldn't just accept a 10-year-old line.
right.
Did you evaluate the mapping? I looked at this map they provided at the last meeting, and it just doesn't line up to me as far as where the old wetland was, and they have, two different 10-year different grades kind of showing, oh, it's obviously has to get brought to this grade. I don't actually agree with that evaluation. Have you looked at the actual, superimposing all of these?
Well, this is, the two that I've been looking at are this one.
Yep.
And then the sketch that you sent.
Correct.
So it looks like they put the original lines in gray and green, and then the pink and red are the actual lines now, so you can see that they don't exactly match up, and then they put these little
Mhm.
numbers as to about how far off they are in
Mhm.
each of those areas. So that did look to me like the grades were off in some locations. And then this one, you were saying that this is the 2003 delineation, which would be
This is actually
line.
the 2003 delineation,
Yeah,
right?
so those are the same lines there, and this is the flagging that I went and looked at and
Correct.
said, I'm seeing wet veg up gradient of it, but
So we're talking about bringing them back to this
Yeah.
line here. Is that correct?
Yes.
that's
The 2002
apparently-
line,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
Yeah, I mean, I
apparently-
can remember being out on that site, and there was kind of, a clear area toward the
okay.
back that kind of ran from the north to the south.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that
And
makes
the-
sense. And then-
the up-
Yeah,
the uppermost well,
Mhm.
which is above the disturbed area,
Mhm.
was never wet it was never wet within 20 inches of the surface. So that suggests that hydrology has not changed upslope of the project.
Okay, so that was up gradient
It
of
was
the
up
original line.
Right.
Okay, that's a good data point.
Were you
Carl,
saying to
how would-
reinstall monitoring wells to determine after all this is done? Did I hear you make that comment?
I would think that might be a good idea because the grades have been monkeyed around with so much, and it would be a number of years before you could really look at the soils. They're gonna take some time to evolve, and then you will have put within the wetland, you will have put wet species, and then in the upland, you will have put some upland species, so you've got nursery plantings. So your vegetation isn't necessarily gonna reflect the hydrology, so you could put them, that would be the fastest way to find out if the grading is correct. And if the wetland is fully restored where it should be fully restored. So,
How do we make sure we don't set a very sticky precedent of an established wetland, even though it's established because of work done on the site? It's still established. How do we get around filling it in to recreate the original one because it's established? Because that's a precedent that's going to be a sticky
Well, we
line.
have to, again, we have to make a determination of, does it make more sense to, you know, look at the way it's existing now or try to force it into its original 2003 form in a sense. But that's kind of the discussion.
I think the way this is not just someone coming in, doing an excavation, walking away, and then coming back. That's a different situation. Here you have contamination, and to me that really changes things, because you want to make sure, number one, find a way to confirm that the toxins have been removed. Because if this company that did this was sort of negligent in not restoring the grades properly, they could have been negligent in
I agree
the
with that.
contamination. And then, so that's, I think that's where you would say to somebody else, say it's just a developer who went to a site and did some excavation and said, hey, I want to come back and restore that.
When was the last time they did actually
You could say there's
chemical
an
sampling
We
on
overriding
that?
have enough,
issue here,
we
which
have
is the
enough soil
contamination
data
issue.
Okay.
to fill this room, so I'm sure it was done properly. And the DEP saw all the data, everybody saw the data, our LSP, the town's LSP, this thing was surrounded with people, so I don't think anybody made any mistakes.
Yeah, the grid sampling of the sampling was very much reduced from the original proposal, so I know that was the one sticking point towards the end. but-
Well, yeah,
So then
this
how
is-
do we say that they haven't created their own hardship at that point?
I think the original plan showed like 5-foot or 10-foot grid sampling.
It was a grid,
And we
initially.
ended up like doing 25
Well, I mean, there was what, half a dozen LSPs on this project from the
different
start,
times, yeah.
at least. And then we had, I think, Green Seal, was it?
Yep, that was the final.
So we had our own LSP. But having worked on sites myself, you know, sometimes again, based on time, things can move around. Things you didn't sample. I mean, if you sample here and you didn't sample in that specific spot, you know, and there was lead there or mercury there, you may not pick it up there. You can say, I didn't see anything there. There are hot spots. So nobody can sample 100%. You statistically look at a grid or where you think
They
the
don't require 100% either.
no, but I mean, if we saw a stain there and we just kind of went around it and said, I didn't sample that, that's still going to be there. And some materials that don't break down in the environment very well could last generations.
And some migrate fairly quickly.
That's correct.
And
And you
TBD,
have other materials like benzene which don't break down in the environment, that you can find in a plume from 50 years ago or more. But that's just the nature of the beast.
They used to use it to clean septic systems.
It's a human carcinogen, too.
I know.
So, where are we going right now with this? What are we trying to accomplish here tonight?
Well,
Sidewalk?
I think that would be a very important step at this point, just to, again, to bring commissioners up to speed with that site, especially if you've never been out there. It's a good-sized property, and obviously it's been 100% disturbed from what it looked like when there was stacks of automobiles out there umpteen years ago that were like 6 high, and you had like little corridors through the automobiles, and you know, there was all kinds of debris there and everything.
I think I hung my flag on some antennas.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would definitely be an important point, and I think that would also give commissioners another flavor of what we're talking about as far as
That's important, because I have no
you
idea.
know,
I've never been out there.
where this resource area is out there, and see what it kind of looks like. Because we really have to kind of come to a conclusion on that, you know, how the commission wants to see that. And that really is one of the foundations of trying to take the next steps as far as figuring out the locations of the the dwellings, et cetera, to kind of, again, to lock down that
Wetland on
it's highly disturbed wetland.
Do you want to wait on making kind of a final ruling on that, the discussion we're having right now, until the site walk?
I would like to. I'd like commissioners to see it. You know, I mean, again, this isn't just a little, tiny little property, so it's a decent-sized property.
Sun doesn't go down until 8 o'clock, so we can go in the evening.
Yeah, I would recommend like an after-work type of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good.
Make a motion then.
I make a motion, we do a site walk on, I have no idea what day it is.
How about tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night. Tomorrow's Friday.
Friday, yeah,
Friday's not good.
Friday's not a good night.
okay.
Tuesday, Wednesday, good nights.
Not next Tuesday.
Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, the date being 25th?
Sure.
Is it the 25th?
Oh,
I don't think I could do that on Wednesday.
Thursday?
I think Thursday.
Thursday's the 25th.
Okay.
That's 25th?
Does that work for you, sir? Does that work?
I think I can do that.
And let me ask, I always throw this out for a question to the applicant. If there are interested parties that want to attend, is that something the applicant is willing to entertain?
You mean outside of the,
Yeah, I mean, abutters or anything like that? I mean, you don't have to, and I'm not saying you do, I just
Yeah, no.
throw it out there
I don't
and
want anybody on there that doesn't belong there.
that's fine.
What time, 6 PM?
Yeah, it's a little early. It's probably gotta be,
6:30?
probably do 6:30. I'd be stuck in traffic,
Oh.
calling
yeah,
on the
right,
phone
right,
saying,
right.
I'm on 495.
Yeah, gotcha.
Did anyone second that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Is there a second on the motion of 25th at 6:30?
Second.
We have a motion that we conduct a site walk at 47 West Street.
No, next week?
Wait, which day was this, sorry?
25th.
Thursday. Next Thursday.
Yep, I could.
Okay. So the motion is to conduct a site walk on 47 West Street at May 25th at 6:30 PM. Any further discussion? Noting the applicant's comments about no butters or anyone else other than the commission or in its hired professional staff, et cetera. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining?
All right, thank you.
Okay.
We'll see you next week.
And I will entertain a motion to continue the
Oh, yeah.
notice of intent. If you don't want to
You
continue,
have my permission.
Minor
Yeah.
detail.
So.
To-
Make a motion to continue 47 West Street. EP 1610826,
June 15th at 7:20, please.
June 15th at 7.
20.
7:20. We have a motion, and it hasn't been seconded yet, no?
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 47 West Street to June 15th at 7:20 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. All right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Aye.
Thank you.
Anyone on Parish Road or still in holding pattern?
What?
Parish Road project? Is that still in holding pattern that
I
you're
haven't
in?
heard a thing, so I think there's
Same.
stuff that's in their balls in their court.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so that, this next site visit's probably, beyond the original scope, so we have to coordinate on.
Money. I'll take care of it. Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
Parish Road, we can continue, open it.
All right. It being on or after 7:45, I'm going to reopen a notice of intent for 66 Parish Road. And that's a 10-lot subdivision on a 40-acre parcel. And we have been requested to continue this. And no update from the applicant at this point?
The word on the street is they're trying to modify the project to the point where they literally can get it out of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. I don't know if that's
How are they gonna
possible.
even do that?
Well, cluster development, so OSRD, technically cluster development, it's supposed to be reducing the scope. This is a perfect OSRD project.
Right.
Developers very, very, very rarely work with the intent, the spirit of the law. Cluster development, bring everything way up front, right on top of the
And keep a
development.
lot of the land open, that's kind
This
of
is a
by
perfect candidate
definition.
project for that. So they're proposed to do that. Now, that might be more condo style.
No, again,
it's up to them how they.
they could have done this they could have still had separate homes and done almost like a central septic outside of the jurisdiction. That would have been the probably most logical way to approach it. I don't know if they're considering that. But I think I mentioned it to them at the time. Actually, like on Little's Hill, that's what they did there.
Yep.
Okay.
But that's really up to the applicant to kind of make, their determination and then bring that to us and.
So I believe they're going before the planning board still with some of these changes. I have not been invited into any of the meetings related to that. I think they're trying to really hash out, if that cluster development can work, how many units can they put, how close together, and really smush them in there. I'll be honest, I'd be very surprised if they 100% out of our jurisdiction.
Well, it
there
would
might
be
be
hard on that
there might be a little bit of
area.
parking. I mean,
Well,
it's a
you
very
got
big
you got
use.
riverfront, that's so you got 200 feet.
Yeah. Again, this is what I think their goal, and it's our goal too, by the way. If people can put a project outside of the
Yeah.
Concom's jurisdiction, they're
Right.
supposed to do that. If they can do it waiver-free, they're supposed to do that next.
That would
and
be
then,
fantastic.
And then as they have waivers, they have to justify why they have waivers. This is technically how it's supposed to go. You guys don't see that very often. Usually it's maximized, pushing everything into the buffers. Huge waivers, and then they pull a few back and say, I did my job.
Right.
I did a alternative design.
So
they're
we'll
working on it.
Yeah, we'll wait and hear from them, I guess.
Correct. Yep.
And you can keep us informed.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. I'll entertain a motion to continue.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue the NOI for 66 Parish Road until June 15 at
7:30, please.
7:30.
Correct.
Yep. So,
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 66 Parish Road to June 15th at 7:30 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? Thank you.
I don't think I've ever said this at 8:10 before, but that's all I have.
Wow. Oh, yes, I have something. This is a simple one, though.
These ones were
We
cited
are-
textbook for years on camera.
We are in need of a new open space committee member. One of the current individuals is resigning because they're moving. Not that they don't like us, they're moving. So, we want to make sure that we have an adequate staff. So if you know anyone that is interested, they're doing some actually pretty exciting stuff now as far as the trail mapping project,
Very
so.
exciting.
So we also have 2 open commissioner seats, and it's very soon to be 3. So we're also, that's also an important role that we're short on people. I've been courting a few people, and
Because it's so much
Keep
fun,
working.
so much fun. So if you have
Well,
any friends.
now we
I
can
think it is.
now we can tell people to get
Very
out before
interesting.
9 for the first time ever,
ever.
literally ever.
Any other updates as far as projects?
We're really getting into the enforcement
Yeah.
time. I got 2 or 3 enforcement actions that I'm writing and trying to, I hate to say it, resolve it before it gets to the commission. Work with them, try to come up with a plan. So when it gets to the commission, it's like, here's what happened. Here's our proposal how to fix it. They agree. Moving forward. I have one that's not really going very smoothly. So you guys will probably have that one by the next meeting, and
Oh,
I'll
fantastic.
update you on that when the time comes. I'll send something out, kind of updating the facts on the project.
As we come into the season, we also want to make sure we keep up to speed with any turtle-related issues on the fields and such, because we
Correct.
had some
I'll
issues
check in with
last
them.
year. I just want
Thank
to make
you.
sure
Thank you for the
that we're
reminder.
communicating properly. It's not really a problem. It's just
Yeah.
that we need to make sure that everyone's on the same page, so.
The
Isn't
state's been
a
doing a lot of
problem.
turtle work lately. I spent 2 hours yesterday in the field checking turtle traps. So, there's a lot going on. I've never done that before. Checking the traps, it's kind of fun.
West Street,
Can't tell you on camera.
secret. Wait, I'm a commissioner still, right?
Off camera, I can tell you.
I got you.
You're not a commissioner
and
for
they-
another
and they-
2
yeah,
days or whatever.
That's why they don't publish, locations of endangered species or even the type of species, because they don't want everyone to know.
Right. What about the tree situation we had? I think it was on Beverly. By Rock Pond. The fellow had a tree right next to his house. He wanted.
7:30, George. 7:30. You missed it. Yep.
It was quick.
Continue it or something?
Yeah, we did. So to answer your question, we we didn't open it in the appropriate time frame allowed by law, or demanded by law.
Right. Yes.
They requested a superseding order decision from the state, which was granted. So we were out of.
So
that.
they
It's just-
granted cutting down the tree?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
It is what it is. We try not to let that happen.
Right.
I mean, we were gonna let them cut the tree down anyways.
Yeah.
We would have actually, it would have, if they worked with us, they would have gone it down sooner. If it was a safety concern, they could have done it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
They chose to go this route, because they have family in the industry, so they know the process. Same outcome, by the way. It's just
Same
we didn't,
outcome.
we would have asked them to plant 2 or 3 trees as mitigation.
Yep, I remember that, right.
It is not an ideal situation. We try not to do it, but if you're gonna do it, that's the one versus a 50-lot subdivision.
Yeah.
So, yep. And that was on me, just as far as notifying them and kind of watching the clock. When you miss meetings, it gets hard and very awkward because you miss a meeting. You almost don't pay attention to the next meeting for 2 more weeks. And there's certain things that you need to do when the new projects. If it's a continuation, it's less of a big deal. But to open it, you have to open it within 21 days.
Okay.
Period. No exception. We missed the meeting at 15 days. The next one is a month out.
And if you're not familiar with the Mullen Rule,
Yep.
you can only miss, I think, 1 hearing and make it up? Or
And I
is it
think
2
some of the
now?
One,
big,
I think.
yeah, only one, so you can miss one.
You have to.
And you have to read the minutes, watch the video, and sign something. You miss 2, you're out. One of my biggest concerns on, say, for example, 47 West Street, that's
Right.
going on multiple. So we're losing you, Laura missing her 1 tonight. That project might take another 6 meetings to close out. So we
So-
really, really need to pay attention to that as far as that.
Would it
Right.
help if I stayed one more meeting?
No, that's a 6-month. That's 6 meetings. It's not going to be a 1 more meeting.
And the
We haven't
problem
gone
is
to the
if
heavy
if
lifting
we
yet.
lose quorum, then they literally have to refile it.
Right.
Withdraw without prejudice and then refile. We can waive the fees, but
So on some of those, especially as we're kind of short, make sure we keep track of who's here and
Yep.
who's not,
Yep.
so we can tally that, so if there's any issue, we can affirmatively say,
so,
yeah.
so for like
we
the
have
East
quorum.
Main Street project, the
And these
Dunkin'
people can vote.
Donuts, we haven't in discussions. It's been continued. It's been continued.
right.
We've only had 2 real discussions. The 4 commissioners. As long as all 4 of them show up for the next 1 or 2 meetings, whenever that happens, they're redesigning that one too. So
Okay.
that's all I have.
Anything else from commissioners? Early night.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, I'll just make it one more time. I will stay until you get one. If you so desire, I will.
We'll talk.
I'm
Well,
gonna
3
say
months,
yes, just
4
because
months.
I like
We'll
you,
talk
Nick.
offline.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close if there's nothing else.
I move that we close the meeting.
Second?
Yes, right.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to close the May 18th meeting of the Georgetown Conservation Commission. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, all abstaining. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys. So.